Plunge is the water coaster at Great Wolf Lodge Poconos. This was the first water coaster to make its way to the Poconos region, but how does it stack up to the others in the area? Find out in this review of Plunge. Great Wolf Lodge Poconos opened in 2005. This hotel featured a 78,000 square foot indoor water park with nearly a dozen different water slides. But none was more notable than Plunge. This was the first of many things. This was Pennsylvania's first water coaster. This was also the first water coaster added to a Great Wolf Lodge. The chain would go on to add a few additional water coasters over the years, but they're still pretty rare to find at these parks. And it was also one of the first ProSlide rockets. 3 of these slides would be built in 2005. Along with Plunge, there was also Typhoon at Six Flags New England and Black Anaconda at Noah's Ark. The earliest water coasters used high-powered water jets to blast riders uphill. The rockets were unique in that they used high-speed conveyor belts to propel tubes uphill. At the time, this was quite the innovation because it was faster than the water jet method. But it did have some drawbacks, and this is why ProSlide moved away from this method. 1. The conveyor belts were not fluid. When you hit the belts, your raft sort of sticks to it, so you'll pause for a moment. This will jerk riders forwards, and it's a bit awkward from a pacing perspective. 2. They are very loud. Whenever a tube approaches an uphill section in Plunge, the conveyor belts are activated and make this high-pitched whirring sound. It is not the most pleasant on the ears. 3. It's not as fast as newer technologies. This includes both magnetics and improvements to water jets. The area's other water coasters were built a decade later, and they took advantage of the latter. Storm Chaser at Aquatopia was built by Whitewater West. The water jets on that Master Blaster could push rafts uphill equally as fast as Plunge in a smoother, more continuous motion. Anaconda at the Kalahari is a ProSlide creation with even stronger water jets. That slide offers the fastest uphill acceleration of any slide in the Poconos. But back to Plunge. This slide makes quite the impression. The blue paint scheme looks solid, but it's more about this slide's placement. The hills rest high above the midway, coming darn close to the ceiling. The slide is part of a large tower in the original section of the park. Plunge is located in the upper level, roughly 5 stories above the ground. This is the same platform for the 2 family raft slides, so they all share the same staircase. The queue line splits off for Plunge towards the top. This is one of the more popular slides at this park, but because of how Great Wolf Lodge limits capacity, lines were quite manageable. Plunge never had more than a 15-minute wait. Staff members were efficiently loading rafts and sending them the second the prior one hit the splashdown pool. Unlike the other water coasters in the region, you cannot ride Plunge alone. You need to ride in groups of 2 or 3. The total weight of all riders must be between 150 and 600 pounds, and your party will be weighted by a scale at the top. If you're alone, the lifeguards at the top will try to pair you with a group of 2. When it's your turn to ride, guests should sit with the lightest guest up front and heaviest guests in the back. Once you get the all clear, a conveyor belt pushes your raft over the edge. You head immediately into the first drop, and it's the largest drop in this ride. While it doesn't offer any airtime, it has some zip to it as it's decently steep. You then have your first uphill ascent. As noted earlier, the raft will initially get stuck for a split second on the belt, which will sort of jerk you forwards, but you then start accelerating uphill. While they have a respectable speed, they're not fast enough to produce any airtime. These belts are the biggest con with the slide. While the belts were fast for the time, they simply are not as punchy as other water coasters, and you also have that minor comfort issue when you stick to them. For me, Plunge's uphill bits aren't necessarily an exciting element, rather, they exist simply to rebuild potential energy for future drops. The second drop occurs immediately after the first uphill ascent, and is the weakest plunge on the ride. It's on the shorter side and fails to offer any negative Gs. You then shoot uphill into a tunnel. There, you have a 180-degree turn left. The raft carries good speed through this turn, and when you exit, you zip down a solid drop. While it doesn't give airtime, it does have a bit of a weightless sensation. You then have another conveyor belt uphill, and then you have an enclosed helix. It's not too forceful, but it builds the speed necessary for the finale. This part leads into a double down. You have this itty bitty dip that gives a quick pop of airtime, and then immediately after, you have a larger drop giving some weak floater airtime. This was a very unexpected moment that was easily the best part of the ride for me. You then have your fourth and final uphill ascent, which is similar to the prior ones with the sticking issue. You then find yourself in a partially translucent tube that I believe exits the building. You have a few mild turns before hitting the splashdown pool, ending the 727 foot or 222 meter long water slide. So what would I rate Hydro Plunge? I would give this water coaster a 5 out of 10. This is a fun water coaster. It is a heck of a lot better than most water slides, but that ranking compares it to the other water coasters out there. It has good length, especially for an indoor slide. I also like Hydro Plunge's placement high in the air, and a few of the drops are enjoyable. While most drops don't give airtime like newer water coasters, that double down is a really good element. I just wish the uphill ascents were better. I know it's a product of when the slide was built, but they just don't hold up compared to the slides built over the past decade. Compared to the other water coasters in the Poconos, I would take Storm Chaser over this one. That slide is smoother and a bit punchier, but I would definitely take Hydro Plunge over Anaconda. The latter may have the faster ascents, but it has some oddly bumpy valleys and absolutely no airtime whatsoever. So those are my thoughts on Hydro Plunge at the Great Wolf Lodge Poconos. What are your thoughts on this water coaster? How do you think it compares to the others out there? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there will be a lot more roller coaster amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.